Hey guys, welcome back to another episode, and I think this is going to be the final episode of Latinos in Real Estate Investing podcast. We'll be rebranding to Wealthy AF here the next episode you listen to. And where individuals just like you come to learn how to create wealth through real estate investing, business ownership, and entrepreneurship. And in today's podcast, I have two returning guests, and today we're going to talk about the future of the mortgage market and the mortgage industry. These are two mortgage professionals. I have Ed Parcaut, and Ed is an accomplished professional in the mortgage industry with nearly 30 years of experience, advanced degrees in marketing and international business, a military background, and an advocate for financial literacy and real estate education. I have also back here Quinton Harris, and Quinton is the VP of Northeast Florida for the Bank of England. He's been in the mortgage industry for over 20 years. Under his leadership, the BOE of Jacksonville team earned the number one branch and organization-wide for 10 consecutive years, while simultaneously gaining the number one market share in Northeast Florida for 2020 and 2021. And I'm actually moving to Florida, brother. So I negotiated a good deal, so maybe you can give me some pointers and help.
There you go.
We'll talk off air.
Yeah, man.
According to both CoreLogic and Zonda. So, gentlemen, welcome to the podcast again. Both of you have been on here before, and I really respect you, both of you gentlemen, and your opinions, and I wanted to have you back. So, let's get right into it. Gents, we just saw the Feds 2 days ago come out and hinted that they were going to cut rates. Man, 2024 crystal ball. I'm going to start with you, Ed. What do you have to say about that, brother? What are you thinking? What are you saying?
As the other mortgage people in our room will say, what the Fed does has nothing to do with mortgage rates. We already saw mortgage rates move in the last 5 weeks much lower than they've been in the last 5 weeks. I mean, I've seen numbers as low as 6.625 for conventional and other stuff, and I'm not quoting. I'm just saying what I've seen. We've already seen the bond market moves way before the Fed moves.
Mm-hmm.
That's the difference. So what the Fed is doing is they're lowering short-term interest rates, overnight rates to banks, what most people see on the prime rate. So the HELOCs, the credit cards, those kind of things is what they adjust. They're always late to the party. They're the ones who slow stuff and purchase mortgage-backed securities and do other things that actually help with the rates. But what they actually do with lowering rates is always after the fact. And so I see next year going to be really good, but the biggest problem we still have is it's still about inventory. We're so short on inventory, it doesn't matter what the rates do, because the more the rates go down, more people come into the market again. And if you don't have the inventory, that just means values are going to go up. So it's not going to help a lot of people unless we have more inventory come on the market.
So when you say you see next year going to be really good, be more specific. What do you mean? And to what respect? To buyers coming on the market? To mortgage rates dropping? To what respect? More transactions?
So I'm in a different market. I'm in California. I'm not in Florida. Florida is a different market than California. The problem that we have in California is we haven't built homes. We're so short behind on homes that when people come to purchase and people put their house on the market, we're still appreciating at over 10%. We're at, we have offers over accepted. We still have things like that. I'm in Northern California. I think you said I was in LA, but I'm actually in Northern California. And it's a totally different market than anywhere else in the country. It's all regional, so every place is different. When I say it's going to be better, it's going to be better for interest rates. So interest rates will be lower, but we're not going to see probably the 3% we saw before in my lifetime. I don't think we'll ever see it unless we go into another thing like a pandemic or something like that happens again where they shut down the country.
Quinton, what are your thoughts? What do you see for 2024, brother?
Well, I think everything he just said was described perfectly. The things I'd add to that are, to his point, the Federal Reserve and the Fed funds rate, when they move that up or down, while it doesn't have a direct bearing on mortgage interest rates, there is lag time for a lot of those policies they put in place. And I think what we're seeing right now is a massive disparity between the 10-year Treasury and what the 30-year fixed rate mortgage should be. Traditionally speaking, you could take the 10-year Treasury, add 150 or 175 basis points to it, and that's your 30-year fixed rate mortgage. Right now, with a lot of the volatility in the market and the uncertainty on the secondary side, you're not seeing that normal ratio. You're seeing about 300 basis points added to the 10-year Treasury, which is why the rates are highly, or what we would call more inflated than what they should be. I'll take just a second here. I just want to share a screen that kind of shows and represents, what I'm talking about there, because you're going to see that if you go back to, let's say, I'm trying to pull it up here. I'll pull up in a minute. Anyhow, if you go back to 2021 of December, you'll see that the 10-year Treasury was about 1.54. The 30-year mortgage rate was 3.10 on a national average. If you take today's 10-year Treasury, we're about 3.9, and you heard my counterpart here just say, he's seeing 6.625. That's not 150 basis points. We've seen some of the disparity disappear on yesterday's announcement from the Fed, combined with consistency of mortgage applications being up and job loss claims reports being either in line, mildly less, or greater. But we're seeing more consistent economic data come out. And with that consistency, you're starting to see the removal of that disparity in interest rates. So, to everyone's point, rates will come down. A shameless plug here, our episode 115 on our podcast of What Your One More is a crystal ball that actually breaks down each quarter. We give you the exact interest rates we think it's going to be on each quarter and overall interest rate at the very end of that as well. Inventory, I think, is an issue nationwide, especially in our backyard. It seems that the California market and the Florida market represent the same as far as lack of inventory. The demand here is just off the charts. And I think, it's probably, to say the least, that generational demand in the millennial generation is much higher than other generations. We've kind of missed that move-up buyer has left the market, but that first-time home buyer is still real. And you're looking at about 46 million first-time home buyers right now that are competing in the market. And if those rates come down at all and the affordability gets more in line, we're going to see a demand like we haven't seen before. We're not just getting multiple offers, we might be getting 20 multiple offers and tens of thousands over price. That's what's on the horizon since the builders cannot backfill this inventory.
Now, can I just add to your point? Yeah. In Florida, because I interviewed a few people on my radio show from Tampa. It's regional by where people are. So there's certain markets in Florida, just like in California, that aren't doing as great as the rest of the state.
It has to be home prices. Home prices and affordability, definitely. Here in Northeast Florida, all the way down to Orlando, you're still seeing a high level of demand. But what you're also seeing is that lack of affordability. For a first-time home buyer to attempt to go buy a $700,000 home in our market, that's far more difficult and not normal. 500 and below is that first-time home buyer here in our market, and you've kind of seen the builders pivot towards making that home and getting out in front of it. But there is a lag time in that, property going from land to vertical. And that's kind of what we're seeing right now. I think I saw a stat from Zonda that showed 58% of all new construction sales right now are first-time home buyers. So that kind of speaks towards that demand that buyers are looking for in our market in particular. And that was all of Florida from that construction front.
I think one of our biggest issues that we're having with that is, and same here, it's the affordability. They say, okay, we're building in Sacramento this huge apartment complex, affordable homes. They start out at $650,000. That's not affordable. That's not for the first-time home buyer. That's not. Our biggest problem is land costs and permits. Just permits and everything getting going. We're about $125,000 and haven't even started on anything. So my big push is and I'm not saying the government, but they need to do something better, kind of like they just did in Las Vegas, where they donated land so they could build affordable housing from the federal government. They sold it to the state. Yeah,
I couldn't agree more. And Martin, if I could, just to kind of show this share here that we're talking about, hopefully it pops right up here. Are you able to see that chart?
We are not able to see.
Okay, so you're not.
Share screen?
Yeah, share screen. It says it's sharing, but it's not. But Martin, we'll put it in your YouTube channel. I'll send them over to you. Yeah. If you guys will tune into his YouTube channel there, you'll see these charts on there. But, what they're talking about, household formations in America right now is more household formations this year and next year than we've ever seen before, meaning that the age of 26 years old or higher have moved out of their home, creating a new house. And the first-time home buyer now has gone from 33 years old to 35 years old nationwide. If you take the amount of people between 26 years old and 35, that's 46 million people, just shy of 46 million people that are looking to purchase a home. We don't have that kind of inventory available, which is also adding rent pressure to the rental properties out there as well, because those individuals have to live somewhere. So that's demand and that's lack of inventory, and that's part of the issues that we're seeing right now.
We're seeing rent in some of the markets, right, across the country, in some markets, deflate some. I just reported on my weekly market update this morning as a report from Redfin that in New York City and Manhattan, we've had a 2% rent drop. I don't think Manhattan, I don't feel bad for Manhattan. Manhattan's going to be fine. New York City, they went from 4,095 to 4,000 or 3,900, something like that. I don't feel bad for them, but it's an indication of what's happening in the country. what impact do you guys see, or what does your crystal ball say, gentlemen, as it pertains to real estate investors that are holding properties right now, where we had pro formas with these high level numbers, right? And now we're seeing rent softening. I'd like to get your opinion on that. And I'd like to get your opinion, both of you, on what you think it's going to happen with these maturing commercial loans coming due in the next year, and how that's going to play out. And what do you guys think? Do you think that's the reason the Feds are kind of being dovish now?
I don't think that's why the Fed's being dovish per se. I think there's a lag effect in the amount of policy that they've put out there. I mean, if you think about it, if you got a headache and you took the 4 max Tylenol or Advil you're allowed to do, and the headache doesn't go away right away, and you just keep adding to that, eventually you're going to have a disaster on your hands. And I think the Federal Reserve has said, hey, listen, let's let the lag time affect. Typically, policy takes 90 days to get through the monetary system, especially on the credit tightening side of things. And so to think that they're pausing to see what happens in the commercial market, I don't think that's the case. I think they're seeing indications of a soft. You got to remember, the Fed has two main primary objectives. They're trying to get inflation, the target inflation rate, to as low as 2% or 2% as possible in the PCE core, as well as softening of the labor market. Softening is just a fancy word for deterioration or, job loss. And they're starting to see those things happen. They're not at the magic number of 2%, but they're darn closer than they were at 8%. And so I think they're seeing the lag effect make its way through the system. And I think adding any more medication in the form of an interest rate hike, I think would be ill-advised. And I think they're starting to see that and see the effects of what they're done. The last thing they want to do is shock the system. That would be a bad thing. Their goal is to try to achieve a soft landing. Adding any more interest rate hikes could put us in that recessionary acceleration and a hard landing. And you're seeing it happen right in front of us with Powell's comments for the first time at the at the podium on Wednesday. He actually had comments that he didn't say, wasn't patting himself on the back saying, hey, listen, we've achieved it. But he did indicate saying we're starting to see progression. And for the first time, he didn't come out and actually contradict some of the Fed statements coming out of the FOMC. He kind of went with it and let the market kind of absorb it and not contradict it. And that was the real big move for the bond market as well as mortgage rates. And he specifically has been asked in the past, there's a lock-in effect in mortgage loans right now, and housing plays a big role in the GDP. Is the Fed considering, any type of rate cut or quantitative easing based on that acceleration of that lock-in? And he specifically said, our policies aren't dictated based on, housing and what people's mortgage interest rates are. And I would say that would probably go with the commercial lending aspect as well.
Good point. Ed, what are your thoughts?
Well, one of the reasons where we are right now is because, all right, I look at this, it's like a budget on the Fed and the administrations, what they've been doing. If you look at it, it's like a budget in a family. You have two people. If they're both on the budget, it works faster. If they're not on the budget, you have the wife on the budget and the husband not. Either way, then it takes forever for this to happen. And that's what happened right now. We should have been through this a lot longer, but the administration has been shoveling so much money out there, free money to all these different things. We finally ate up all that money. And now what the Fed is doing is finally affecting and working, even though that is what happened. And then also the unemployment rate, it's different wherever you're at. Like in California, where I think we're at 6% overall. And that's just because a lot of employers don't want to get rid of their people. They have a feeling that it's going to get better, and they've been holding on to their people a lot longer than they normally do. I think the last BLS report came out saying there was 8.5 million jobs still available out there. Normally, when we go through this, we don't have that many jobs available. We don't have an unemployment rate going back down to 3.5% like we just had. So there's so many things that are in play here that most of us go, we really don't know what's going on. We can only say what we think is going on and what we think is going to happen next year. It's just a very unique situation where we came out of a pandemic and this is where we're at. And then we spent so much money and finally that money has gotten eaten up. And so what the Fed has been doing is finally working.
If I could counter that, Martin, 2023 taught us what we don't know. And, no one saw the SVB bank collapse and further regional banks collapse happening, as well as a third world country war take place. And I think those are all factors that, you can't really include in your crystal ball. You can just say if this, then that, and all bets are off if these things happen. But I will also say to your point about commercial loans is that there's a lot of notes coming due this year. And you asked that question. And I think that if these rates don't get in line, I think you're going to see there's going to be some challenges to refinance that for debt servicing. I don't know that some of the rents that are out there are going to cover those rise in interest rates. Now, to every commercial loan's benefit, if these rates come down, it may just even itself out. But I think if they remain heightened and some of these notes are coming off a 3.25% rate, and even if they get a 5.5%, that's still a substantial difference on the note and the debt servicing that has to be covered by that.
Which was my next question. Where do you guys think that the rates need to come down so we don't see a real estate market crash? Because that's where we're going in the commercial space on the apartment with all those bridge loans that are out there, and bridge loans and those commercial loans coming due that are on their 5-year or 7-year, they're coming due. Where do we need to be at? Where do they need to go down to for us not to see a crash in the apartment and the commercial loan space, in you guys' opinion?
I'm not in that space, but I'm just going to tell you what I know from a lot of people who are, and they're buying. They're looking for that opportunity. They want that to happen. They have so much money on the sideline. They're hoping that happens so they can pick that stuff up at a discount. Because, I mean, there is a lot of that out there, but I think it's going to depend on where we are in the middle of next year and where rates really are, and did they move the way they said they're going to move and the way we think they're going to move, and how fast the Fed reacts. I don't know in that market myself.
I could tell you, because I'm in that market buying real estate in this market, buying larger we have 160 units under contract right now in Tulsa, Oklahoma, and there are deals right now. We're seeing deals that we haven't seen in years that are penciling out. The challenge is it's on the finance side, right? That's where the challenge is you guys, the bankers, having appetite for anything commercial. My banker locally here we got a $3.8 million loan with them. She flat out told me, we are not lending to new customers. They're a community bank. She straight up told me, we are not lending to new customers, any commercial deals on commercial loans, and we're only loaning to existing customers right now. And she explained to me some complicated math on the overnight rate, and I was like, you guys are making a ton of money on my loan here. Like, she was like, well, not that simple, and she tried to explain it to me, and I grasped what I could. But in your opinion, gentlemen, do you guys believe, or you are in the camp that history will tell us that we experienced a banking crisis in 2023?
We did experience it. That when he brought up the SVP, and people said they didn't know that was coming. Okay, if you live in California and the governor has 3 businesses in their wineries and he's getting these special deals, eventually that stuff's going to happen. And that bank was more worried about ESG than making money. And that was one of the issues, because there's not a lot of banks who went under besides that one. But that one everybody knew because of the way they were reacting to certain things and not focusing on business, like you just said. How much am I making off these transactions? In the mortgage industry, one of the issues with rates, and while we were 300 plus basis points over the 10-year, is the cost to originate loans and what we make off those loans. And then also, when I'm giving you a loan today and I need you to buy that loan, I got to give a premium to you because that thing's going to be refinanced in 1 year, 2 years, 5 years. So it's not that. I'm paying you a premium to take that loan today because you're going to make that money up front. Short-term money is the most expensive money out there. If I was investing in 30-year notes, I want them to be there for a period of time. If I think it's going to be gone in a year, why am I buying them?
And I think that if there was a prepayment penalty back in the market like we used to have, you would probably see less disparity because it would prevent that payoff that's being described right now. But that's not the case.
No, because in 2006, the government changed that to where it's almost illegal to have a prepayment penalty on any of the resident loans, except for portfolio stuff.
Right, non-QMs. In the secondary market right now, what we're hearing from the capital markets is that there's also this theology that not only is it going to refinance, but there's this theology that the secondary markets haven't bought in to the Federal Reserve reducing rates. They haven't bought into the concept that this is the finale of what we've been experiencing over the last 18 months. So they're still holding back premium and holding back and creating that disparity out of lack of uncertainty. And that's what I was describing earlier in the show, is that we just need more consistency in that market. and more downward, pressure, if you may, than from better economic readings that need to come out to justify what's been done in order for that disparity to be removed. Once that comfortability takes place in the capital markets, you'll see things like, the 6% coupon and the 5.5% coupon come back out that just aren't there yet. We're still trading on a 6.5 that we shouldn't be doing that right now.
And then next year being a presidential election year, all bets are off. It depends on what happens with the president election. The Fed never lowers usually the quarter before, do anything right before the election. But if the Democrats stay in power, what that means, if the Republicans or somebody else gets into power, what does that mean? Those are two things that we don't know.
I actually like to, let's dig in there. I like to get your thoughts on that. If the Democrats stay,
man, you're flirting with it there, Martin.
What does that mean? What do you guys think? And I'd like to get both of your perspective. What does that mean if this guy stays, our current guy stays in power? Well, first of all, he allowed this, so this is insane.
I don't work for a bank, so I can tell you whatever you want.
So I just like to get your thoughts on that.
Sure, I'll go first. I'll take it. No one wants to get as an incumbent. No one wants to run on high inflation, high rates, dwindling, GDP. It's just not a good thing. So you want the economy to be thriving when you get to that debate. And when you get in front of the polls, you want to be able to stand in front and say, I've done the following. This is where we were. Now here's where we are. We're supposed to have an independent Federal Reserve, meaning that they don't answer to any governing body in the form of what their decision-making is. Now, I think we can all agree that they're probably not independent like they should be. And that probably goes back beyond this administration. But that's the ideology of what they're supposed to be, and they're not. Because if they were, they would have gone to Congress and said, quit spending money, quit undermining our policies that we're putting into place, because every time you print a dollar, you're making our job harder. And they didn't do that. And they didn't do that because they're not independent. So there's our first, issue that I have with that. The second thing is, regardless of whoever gets in, whatever side of the table you're on, there's going to be issues that have to be addressed inside of where the current economic condition is, and even 2024's. I think that the idea of home ownership, whether it's the Republican or Democratic Party, is still at the heart of both campaigns. And I think that's part of the American dream. So I think both are going to try to push for that. And I think the idea of avoiding a recession is going to be on the table for both people. But this national debt situation, it doesn't matter, going all the way back to the Clinton administration, it doesn't matter if it's Republican or Democrat. We have spent a significant amount of money, way more money than we have. Our own debt has been downgraded, and rightfully so, because we don't have the money to pay it. I think that's the topic that's going to be the hot button in this debate more than ever before. I think that's going to get thrown in a lot of people's faces, the amount of money that's been spent and the amount of money that has not been properly handled as custodians of the American budget. And I think that's going to be the big topic here, the big issue.
I agree. I want to add a couple things to that. I look at it this way. If you have a kid, you have a child, and it does what it wants, and you don't correct any of that kind of stuff, any of that bad behavior, then you keep getting bad behavior. Where we are right now with this administration is, I can do whatever I want. I can spend any money I want for anything that we want, and I don't care what you really care about. That's just what people are thinking. Mm-hmm. And if that doesn't change, then none of the policies are going to change. It was like when we had the recall for the governor in California. I wanted it to go through just so they would stop what they were doing. I don't care if it's a Republican, Democrat, or independent. We're all pretty much in the middle. There's only a fringe on each side out there. We just want to live our lives, have our families happy, grow money, get wealthier. That's what we really want, and take care of people around us, right? If this doesn't change, that current administration won't change. That's what I'm worried about. I don't care who gets in, but it can't be the same way it's been going forward, or we're not going to come out of this the way that we need to come out. We spend more money out of the country than we do in the country. And I don't know about you, Florida might be different, but you come here to California, go to San Francisco, it's horrible. The only time they clean it up is when the Chinese
China man is coming.
Correct. And then it goes back to the horrible way it was before. And that's not just in San Francisco. That's all the big cities, all the way down the coast in California. So we need a change. I don't know who that change is, but we can't keep going the way we're going, or we're going to continue having more problems down the road.
Yeah,
that's my little political speak.
This is a good point that you bring. And what, either way though, gentlemen, here's the thing, that both sides are doing the same thing. So it doesn't matter the side.
Correct.
It doesn't matter who's in office. They're both spending. I mean, this interest rate situation is killing the budget, right? Because we got to pay more in interest as well. We can't afford it. We just can't afford it. So that.
Yeah.
Martin,
but one was
we got $5.2 trillion coming to maturity as we're speaking. And traditionally speaking, they always put that on a short-term note. The short-term notes are more expensive than the long-term notes right now, but the long-term notes still aren't cheap enough to justify that. That's our issue. You know, you're getting ready to make the second largest cost in the national budget interest payments on the debt. I mean, that's literally happening right now. And, you know, again, no one wants to stand up on that podium and talk about tax cuts, reduction of special programs. You know, I'm not going to win any friends with this one, but Social Security. There are benefits, there are things being done right now that are going to have to be reduced and cut in order, because otherwise that debt's not going to go backwards. It's just not going to happen. You can't continue to go down this same path and expect it to get better. I mean, it's just doing the same thing over and over again. We all know his definition of insanity. That's not going to get better.
And if you look at where we're at, everybody looks at how much we spend outside of the country versus in the country. If we spent a lot, if we looked at certain things, wars are started to have us look at other things while there's a problem with administrations usually. And then we get involved with it so that we look at something else instead of what's happening on the side. You look at our border, if you add up all the people together, that's the 7th largest state in the United States. If you put everybody who's come across our border to the state since this administration's been, that's a lot of people. And we don't know who those are. We don't know anything about them. So there's so many things that we could be on here for 2 hours talking about. The most important thing is none of the administrations in the past 5 administrations have cared about home ownership. Truly.
Which leads to my next question. Is the American dream dead? Right? And I got bias here because both of you are in the mortgage industry and you guys make your living from that. But I want to point out to you both that right now, for an American to qualify for a median house, the median price in America, the median household income needs to be $114,000 at the current interest rates. The median household income, and don't quote me on this, is somewhere between 65 and 70 or something like that. You guys will probably know more, but I know it's not significantly more than that. So what does this do to regular working class Americans? Either real estate has to crash, rates have to come down, and is it over? Is the American dream dead? Yes or no? Why or why not?
I don't think it's dead. I don't think we both agreed at the same time.
Yeah. No,
I think
no. Go right ahead.
Rates will go down and things will be more affordable over time. And you're right, because back in the day, I mean, when they were the lowest, you could buy a $700,000 mortgage, and now that same payment's a $400,000 mortgage. Mm-hmm. One of the things that we've ran into is when we got into home ownership when we were younger, it was always a difference than the rent payment. You were like, I don't know if I can afford $500 more a month than what I'm paying rent. During the pandemic, in those 20, 21, 20 into 20, 22, half the way, most people goes, this is cheaper than renting. I should buy. This is the same payment as renting. I should buy. But the moment it gets $300, $400, $1,000 difference, everybody thinks, oh, it's so stupid to own a home. No, owning the home is security in your future. Eventually, your payment will be lower than what the rents are eventually over time. And that's how it's always been. It just during those 3 years, was there a difference when everybody jumped into home ownership, or tried to, I should say.
I completely agree. I would just add to, right now, the American dream isn't dead. I think the American ideology of educating yourself and quit listening to others is dead. The fact that we turn to social media as a form of knowledge is sad. And I really do feel sorry for people that do that, because, you've got all the people in there going, oh, the market's going to collapse. You've got a housing boom bubble, this and that. And I mean, it's not happening, and it's not going to happen, because to our point at the beginning of this show, it's a simple economic formula of supply and demand, and it's been the test of time. There's far less supply, far more demand. That's not going away. And even in the height of interest rates in the last decade, home prices went up. The loan limits increased. These things are facts. And those that are sitting around waiting have actually lost out on opportunity and momentum. And it's because they're listening to the wrong people. I grew up and my parents used to tell me, show me your friends, I'll show you your future. Give me your circle of 5 and I'll tell you exactly what it's going to look like. And if it's social media and it's naysayers and it's people that are constantly telling you what's going to go wrong and it doesn't, then at some point you got to back up and say, maybe I'm listening to the wrong people. Maybe I'm filling my head with the wrong stuff. I'm not educating myself. And I think there's a lack of that. And that's the failure in the American dream, not necessarily housing.
I'm not going to knock social media because I'm on it all the time and I produce a lot of content. But I understand what you're saying. There's 50% out there saying the sky is falling, and they're the ones people are listening to. I talk to a lot of clients, and they're like, you said it's going to be this, but I heard this guy out of Sacramento saying this, this, and this, and this. How come that's not going to happen? And that's okay. But there's even a guy out of Las Vegas who's been talking about how everything's going to fall apart, how Airbnb is going to destroy the market. Did that happen? No. I'm like, please put those homes on the market so I can have a buyer go into that home, because right now we don't have inventory. And if we don't have inventory in California alone, we're 2.5 million, probably 2.7 now million short on homes that we need to build, and we're not building them. And once we say that we built enough to get caught up over the next 10, say 20 years. In 20 years from now, you got the pandemic babies coming, which is almost as large as the baby boomer generation. We're never going to get out of this. We can't build our way right now out of this.
Good for us,
so
the investor.
Owning homes, that's why I told people, do not sell any real estate that you own. Hold on to it. And buy the real estate for your kids now. If you're at certain ages, you have kids who are, 5, 7, buy the houses now, because by the time they're old enough, look at our parents. I've been in California since 66, left a few times, came back. Every time we came back to California, we couldn't afford the houses in California as a kid, right? There was always too expensive. There's no different than now. It's the same issue. It's just people, nurses, you have to get into professional degree. Can't work for, McDonald's. You can't work for those type of jobs. You got to get a real job to afford a home these days. And that's how it's always been. But people want to do these other jobs. And so long story short, it's not dead. It's just you need to get educated on how to get into home ownership. And I'm a plug. I put my book out, Financial Freedom, Building Personal Wealth Through Homeownership, came out in February, got bestseller in 2 categories, home buying and selling and mortgages. It tells you how to get through that process and how to understand credit and all that stuff. That's what you need to do. Educate with people who know what they're talking about.
And I think that's the key there. When I say social media and educating yourself, by all means, know who's talking and know what their motive is when they're talking. Everybody has a motive behind everything they're saying. But on social media especially, do some research on that person. I mean, you're talking to 2 gentlemen that have been in the game for a long time. Both have professional degrees.
Of experience here.
Absolutely. Both have professional degrees in their category, right? We've been doing this for a long time. We have the expertise to say the things we're saying. There's people that have been in the real estate game for less than a year. They're just saying crash and, doom and gloom. Like that's not the case, and quite frankly, people are putting stuff out there for likes than they are for educating.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Just put the word hack in front and it'll go viral on TikTok. Yeah. I mean, I came in this business taking people from 13 to 9 and they love me. I never thought in my almost 30 years of being in this, I'd be back to close to that number again. Like we were just, 8.25, 8 and whatever. And we were there. I mean, I cannot believe that. I've never seen rates go up 5% in that short period of time that they did the last time. Normally we have rates go up, but they don't go up that much. So this was a very anomaly, but we also had the lowest rates we've ever seen in our history because of the pandemic we were in. There was no way we could stay with those rates for a long time. Prior to the pandemic, the best rate I was ever able to give somebody was a veteran at 3.25. And that, so we might get back to that, but that's going to take a long time, a couple of years.
So my next and my final question, because I know you got to go, Ed, is why, and you both touched on it a little bit, why haven't we seen a crash with rates going up the fastest, the Fed's just pounding us in the head, the hardest and the fastest they've ever done, right? Yet we're seeing markets like Austin, Texas, seeing a 20% drop. So some markets are getting not hit, but they grew too hard and too fast. There is markets that, from my studying, I don't know how far you are from Riverside. I know Riverside is also getting a little bit beat up in California. There are markets, Tampa is also experiencing some softening, but not there are in all of our states, right? We're seeing some softening, but why haven't we seen a crash? I think the closest thing I've seen to a crash has been Austin, Texas, where the numbers are just off the charts. What's happening there with building and values and just property sitting there. From both of your perspective, both of you, all of us here experienced the last, the great financial crisis, right? GFC. All of us were in the business then. Some, like both of you mentioned on social media and in different platforms, were like, we're headed to a crash. I always said we were going to correct, but I never thought of a crash. Why hasn't that happened?
I think we both said it, supply and demand. We don't have the supply, and we have demand. We have pent-up demand still to this day trying to buy homes. Certain regional areas, I think a lot of people didn't realize, when you move to Texas and you own a home in Texas, this is all of Texas, you don't have property tax, but you have a 3% tax rate for your property tax. Your property tax go up 10% a year. So in 10 years, your property value will double. Yes. Yeah, so whatever the value of your house goes up in Texas, if you live in it, it's 10% max per year. In California, we're at 3%. So for our stuff to double, it takes a long time. If you own investment property in Texas, there is no limit. So whatever the value of that home goes up, that is your new tax rate. Austin was huge on Airbnbs. All these investors bought them, and then the properties doubled. Then they didn't pencil anymore. So from what I've seen on numbers, I've seen about 9.95% drop in Austin, Texas. I haven't seen the 20%, but from what I read and what I've seen, I was more of those corrections of that. And plus, again, Austin was an artist community. Mm-hmm. That's what it was originally. And it grew to where people couldn't afford, and now tech companies are coming in. But that's what my take is. People didn't realize when I moved to Texas, these are things that I have to deal with. First of all, humidity, heat. Now you have to deal with taxes that go up ridiculously because you didn't understand that. So I always told people, do not sell your house in California until you've lived in Texas or wherever you're moving to for one full year and see how that whole year was, if that's someplace you want to stay. Because the appreciation you get in California is unheard of. I think the next place like it is California and New York. But that's all. I'm just saying. So our biggest, it's all about inventory. We've been saying this forever. The Great Recession, or it wasn't been a depression, they just didn't want to classify it. Mm-hmm. We overbuilt homes. We had these loan programs that allowed people to buy 2 and 3 homes in these housing tracts as they were building, and we thought we needed all those homes. And there's even more to it. I talked about it before. If you look at, and Barry Habib talked about it, where if you go back 30 some years, because the average age for someone to own a home back then was 31 years old. If you went back 30 years, we had the Roe versus Wade that came in and plummeted birth rates for the next 10 years. People didn't put all that stuff together to realize these people aren't coming of age and they're not coming here to buy homes, but we have programs that allow them to buy 2 and 3 and 4 homes. They're Big Short. Watch that movie. You have the stripper on the pole saying she's closing on her 4th home. And he's like, how are you doing that? They didn't have to qualify. There was a totally different thing. Currently, it's all about inventory. We don't have enough inventory, and that's why we're not going to see a crash, or nor were we ever going to see a crash.
Yeah, I mean, he absolutely tackled it to a T. We got a counterpart down in Austin, and taxes are the biggest issue. I mean, people moved in there and they had no idea the next year what those property taxes are going to look like. Now they can't even afford to have the home. So there's your issue there in Austin, summed up perfectly earlier on. The thing about the supply demand, I feel like we're beating a dead horse here, but the reality is if we were on the same build track that we were in 2008, we still couldn't meet the demand today. We're actually building at a rate of 1992. So, it is going to take time to get this inventory backfilled. It's going to take time to get this demand curbed, if you may. And that's not going to happen in the next 5 years. So imagine a scenario where rates do go down. And say they get comfortable in the 5s, the mid 5s, maybe the lower 5s. We just don't know. Without discount points, say that environment happens, it's going to be an absolute feeding frenzy. And if you're a buyer and you're listening to this and you haven't bought yet, think about this. You're going to be having 46 million people to compete against during that time nationwide when those rates drop. And if you're a mortgage originator and you're listening to this, are you scalable right now? Can you handle when that happens? And if you're a real estate agent, same thing. I mean, the reality is it's going to be a fury I believe in 24 all the way into 25. I don't think we're going to have to wait to 25. There's this mantra in our industry right now, survive to 25, which I don't necessarily agree with. I think there's tons of opportunity coming in 24. And I think we just got our first glimpse of it on Wednesday. And so, I do think I don't think there's a crash on the way. And the reason I think you don't have a crash is going back to that economic formula of supply versus demand.
Totally agree with that. And what people didn't realize, because of 2008, we had to absorb all those homes. We didn't build anything for almost 10 years. At the rate that we built it at was the lowest, anybody that was, we didn't even close to the 1.7 million homes we need to build a year just for household creations. We didn't do that. That's why we're so far behind. So we can't even, I don't know how we catch up. Maybe building them in factories where, I don't know if you've seen that, where you can they're building houses in factories. They can get them done in 6 weeks and bring them out on site and finish them. So I think that's what we're going to see. More factories, more built, 24 hours a day, 3 shifts, supervisor there. They're building everything. They're shipping it out on site, and they finish the last 10%. I think that's where we're going to go to be able to catch up on this, or even printing the homes with the concrete and all the other stuff that they're trying to do. Those are the builds of the future, and that's how we're going to get close to getting caught up.
Okay, that prefabricated home, maybe even converting some of these commercial properties in metropolitan cities into condos, that are vacant, converting that. I know that's something they've already experimented with in Orlando and Atlanta, and I fully expect to see that continue to happen again on vacancies that are not being filled.
One of the biggest issues with the commercial is a lot of the spaces, how they're built, don't really work to convert them. It costs too much to convert them into something else. And that's some of the issues we're having in our area. You have all these huge department stores and other things that nobody's using anymore. And to convert that into some type of units, the columns are in the wrong place. This is in the wrong place. And what you'd have, structural things that you have to do would it's too costly. Some of that stuff that worked for old hotels and other places like that were converted because you can take 2 rooms and turn them into a little studio or 1 bedroom, 1 bath kind of thing. Go ahead. You're going to ask a question.
Yeah. So I want to be respectful of your time. I know you only have a few minutes, so I'm going to let you answer first, and then I'll let Quinton answer it. So the math is not adding up, gentlemen. Okay. So if I'm a buyer and I'm listening right now, I'm like, great, I should probably buy. But what then happens when those rates go down? We all agree inventory is low, and those rates go down, and the buyer demand goes even higher. So I know you're both saying that there is buyer demand. I'm not personally seeing that. I've seen a tremendous slowdown in my market for buyer demand. Now we still have low inventory, but still buyer demand has gone down. What happens when those prices go up as demand gets hot again, and those prices keep going up? Yes, the interest rates might have come down. We still have an affordability issue. Well, how do we solve for that? Because if I'm listening right now to this conversation, I'm saying, great, amazing. I'm not ready. I'm saving my money. I won't be ready for 2 or 3 years when I'm going to be ready. If I'm listening to these experts, they're saying in 2 or 3 years, the rates are going to go down, but I'm going to be competing with 46 million other people. Holy shit. That's kind of scary. What's the solution?
The math won't add up. And to his point, we're the 46 million. So I tell people, if you ever watched the Tour de France, you have that one guy out in front trying to win that stage, right? He's trying to win today. That's who people were 6 weeks ago, right? That one person out there going, okay, I'm going to buy a house. I know this is the perfect time to buy. I can always refinance later. I can afford it. Even if I have to get my family involved, whatever it is, and split the equity, I don't care. I need to get in. Then you have those 4 riders behind him trying to catch him. That's where we are right now. Okay. You have 4. So it's not a bad time yet. I've seen a huge change this week, like you would not believe. I've been working till 9 o'clock at night, starting at 6 in the morning, trying to get through all the people I need to qualify. And the next issue is going to be that peloton of those riders. If you ever watch Tour de France, that's what's happening with this 46 million people that are going to become whatever that number was. Sorry, I can't think.
46.
That's right.
Yeah. I haven't had my cold plunge today, so I'm not on it. I'm serious. If you haven't done cold plunges, they're very addicting, and it's amazing how much it helps you so much. So when that peloton comes, we're going to have a lot of demand. So there's going to be 22. So I fell into this when one of the people were selling a house recently. They had 22 couples come in, and they all said, we're going to wait until rates come down. You could have had one of them buy that house and then refinance it later. So they're going to wait until 22 other people want that same house, and they're going to bid that thing up. And only one person can buy that house. That's what's going to happen. I don't see that the volume of business is going to grow that much. We're just going to have more people trying to buy the same house. And until we can get to a point where we're building more homes. We don't have that in California. Other places are building. We have not built enough, or do we have enough places? It takes so long to build a house in California. The permitting process from the moment you want to build a track to whatever, could be 10 to 20 years. It takes forever in our state. We're always going to have this problem.
Ed, thank you so much for coming on. I want to be respectful of your time. If people wanted to get a hold of you, how can they connect with you, Ed? How can they get your book? How can they connect with you? How can they find you on social? I know you said you put out a lot of content, and then I'm going to let you answer the question, Quinton, in a moment here.
The easiest way to find me, I'm Ed Parcaut everywhere. So it's Ed, Parcaut. So it's .com, and that's everywhere. Every social media, I'm Ed Parcaut. YouTube, Ed Parcaut. I have that unique last name, so I can do that. Thank you for having me on. I appreciate it. Nice to meet you, Quinton.
So the first solution I would offer is, if you're a buyer now and you're like, hey, Q, all this sounds great. The rates now, I know I'm going to be competing against these people. Turn to a non-occupying co-borrower, solution number one. If you're a first-time home buyer, more than likely your state has a special program for you. I'm going to speak specifically for the state of Florida, but we have 17 different programs that allow you to borrow significant or gain free of charge significant money towards that down payment. And the rates are super favorable. They're just as good as what you would get if you're not using that program. Get into that now. All of those will allow for a non-occupying co-borrower because, as you heard from Ed on the show and myself, these prices are going to continue to go up. So get into this now and gain the momentum of the value of the asset. You could have more than one borrower on a loan application. I mean, there's multiple ways to cut this thing, but from an affordability standpoint, besides switching jobs and getting, more money, which you would do anyways, you don't need our advice for that. That's really the hardest. When you look at affordability, it's made up of three different things: the rate in which you're financing something, the price of the item in which you're financing, and then the income to support that. That is the definition of affordability at its purest. Of those three things, the one thing that takes the slowest to increase in that equation is the income to support all of that. The thing that rises the most is going to be the interest rate. That has the higher chance of rising quicker than anything, and we just saw that happen. So I think that you have to take into account that the rate is going to come down, but if you want to secure the American dream right now, this is the way to do it. But help is on the way. I want your listeners to know that so they don't lose faith. The prefab homes that Ed was describing, those are coming in all regions, and they're going to be fantastic. There are a lot of manufacturers such as Clayton Homes. When you look at what they do for a prefab home, a lot of people go, oh, that's a manufactured home. That's a mobile home. It's not. It's completely different. It actually is treated like a single-family resident, and they are building a quality of product that if you put it side by side with another non-prefab home, you would not know the difference. And that is going to reduce costs and allow those price points to come down. Your nationwide builders like D.R. Horton, Lennar, KB Homes, they are all focused right now on building that 350 and below home to get that affordability out there. There's a massive push for that. But as Ed mentioned, there are a lot of county barriers for licensing, for permitting. That stuff is taking time in some areas way longer than it should in others. And so, I sit in Duval County now, in our neighbor St. Johns County, and then Nassau County right above us. Of those three counties, you got one that you can get things done in lightning fast time because they want to see that growth, and then in another one you got it where the red tape's a little bit more difficult, and they're side by side. That shouldn't be the case, but it is. So I think that you talk about the administration and what's on the forefront. I think affordable housing will be a huge topic going into 2024's election and the push to make that happen. That's something I see both sides looking to make happen, and I wouldn't be surprised if that is also one of the hot buttons going into this election.
I want to share a strategy. I told you I'm moving to your state, right?
Well,
so yeah, look forward to connecting with you when I'm down there, brother. That's for sure. I'd like maybe go to your studio. I know you had invited me to go over, but anyways,
yeah, absolutely.
Here's a strategy I did because just to justify everything you both and Ed just said. So we're looking in the Tampa, Florida market, and we found a house that we love. I don't fall in love with real estate. My wife does, right? I just real estate for me is just like, it's just I buy so many houses and I do real estate. It's just a house.
Emotionless. Yep.
Yes. So we found the house we liked. that I liked, and my wife just loved it. And the rates were just crazy, right? It was sitting on the market for a while, and we both knew that if we waited until rates came down, we were not gonna get that house. So what I did was, I went and I made him an offer, Quinton. I made him an offer with a lease with the option to buy it with a significant down payment, 24 months.
You went and did a subject to.
Yep, lease with the option to buy, but I gave him a significant down payment because it's a pretty big house, right? It's a pretty big house. Gave him a significant down payment. I said, hey, we know we're going to buy this house, but we just don't want to buy it right now. We don't want to commit to a mortgage right now, right? We're going to give you a down payment. We're going to pay the mortgage, and then we got 24 months with an extension of another year if we wanted to. We wanted to wait the rates out to go get financing, right? And that's a way that we were able to get into this house without having to get a 7.5% or 8% mortgage. I'm of the camp that I believe that the rates are going to come down again. I'm in that camp. I just, all the data shows me I study this stuff like you both and Ed, and it's unaffordable for most Americans, and the Feds have to bring it down. They have to bring down the rates, and they've already told us they will. It's a matter of not if, but when. Right. One of the things that I did, talking to lenders, and so the news this week was really good news for me as a buyer on that front. And we're selling our house here, and we're just really, really, really excited about that. Quinton,
if I could add one other thing. So you've got subject to, and again, I continue to plug our episodes. 115 is one of the resources we did on the crystal ball forecast. You want to know where we think on rates and why we think each quarter. Tune into that one. Episode 116, we talk about a different type of financing. Subject to, how to buy assumable loans, how to find them, how to possibly work within the assumable means, and then obviously how to do the lease to own. And those are all options that you're referring to there that are creative. They do require some sort of down payment, but you can turn this into a win-win-win for you, the buyer, the seller, and for the market itself. And you can take advantage of leveraging that current homeowner's lowest rate by stepping in and doing a subject to your point, which is exactly what you did. You don't always have to come with a substantial amount of money. You teach that seller how to become the lender on that particular aspect, write a 5-year balloon note with a guaranteed price point, and the seller will ultimately take that offer because they're tax deferring all of their profits 5 years down the road as well. And that is a huge win because they'll meet the long-term capital gains. Now, I know that sounds like a lot. You might go, Quinn, I don't know how to put that together. But if you tune into Martin's show here and you turn into my show, you'll hear how to do that. And you'll absolutely learn how to go out there and take advantage of this market if you can't go purchase a home right now.
And there's opportunities if you can just wrap your brain around what Quinton just said and what I just shared. There is a lot of opportunities to do that because some markets and some properties at some price points they're sitting because
Correct.
of the affordability issue, right? The price point I was looking at, I knew. So when the realtor tried to negotiate with me, it's like, yeah, sure. You got more, sure, you got another offer. Yeah. Okay, sure. And of course, they came back around to my offer because they shut it down at first because realtors don't understand this stuff. And we had to spend some time educating them on that. I'm like, hey, listen, why aren't you just buying it? I'm like, listen, do you understand economics? Like, do you understand where the rates are? Do you understand? I'm a business owner. I operate on cash flow here, right? Cash flow matters, right? So if I could take advantage and lock this in and take their payment, give them some money, saying, hey, I'm going to get financing, but it's not the right timing right now. Not the right time. So yeah, brother. So thank you so much for being here, Quinton. I'm really, really grateful. It's always an honor. It's always fun to spend time with you. I mean, you always sharing some good stuff, man. I'm constantly following your stuff on social because, you're just sharing really, really good stuff there, brother. And you got a great podcast. And by the way, congratulations on your top 1.5%. I saw that.
Hey, thank you, my friend. I appreciate it.
Yes, 1.5% globally. So make sure you guys go check them out. If people wanted to connect with you, Quinton, how do they find you? Where do they find you? How do they connect with you, brother?
We'd love to have you follow us at What's Your One More. We're on all platforms. That's at What's Your One More with the number 1. That's with the number 1 at What's Your One More. Check us out on YouTube. You can go to Google, Amazon, Spotify, Apple, specifically Apple. We'd love to get the comments and the 5-star reviews. And then check us out on our socials. We put all of our graphs, all of our information on YouTube as well, so you can chart that out and follow us. But again, it's growing. We've only been around for about 14 months, man. So we're pretty stoked about the growth of it. And, we are a big education platform. That's where we stand with the subject matter we put out.
Yeah, these guys, they're crushing it, man. They're doing a great job. Has a great podcast. And you guys heard him here. He's really, really smart. Knows what he's talking about. That's why it's third time here, Quinn?
This is my third time here. It's an honor to be on the show, my friend. Thanks for having me.
And I want to have you come back next year. I'm going to definitely invite you back on the rebrand.
You got it. You got it.
So as this market continues to unravel itself, I want to get your take on it, my brother. So thank you so much, guys. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you for being here, my friend. Thank you so much for coming on. Really, really appreciate you.
Yes, sir. Thanks for having me.